Dr. Stoltz would call as opportunity to remain strong. I got purpose, I got control, I can go to university, I can make it fun, I can learn from this. They remain strong. All those who are victimized by adversity respond to helplessly. There's something in my life and I can't control it. I'm going to take the adversity. God, it's so ridiculous. Why does this always happen to me? Why does it happen to me again? How come I can never change? And I'm weak. I'm unlucky. Yell the man in. I'm going to become weak when I respond that way. All of this mental training puts it right away. That's taking all the mental training we talked about it before. That all the all the mental training. I go, oh, I'm going to change my mind. That was my mind. I'm not for hardship. I'm going to steer away from comfort. Those statements all result in higher response versus higher we'll talk about active health. And it's actually like learn helplessness in educational theory about control, mastery over one's life. When I think I'm in charge of my life, I'm not talking about in charge in that God is in my life, God is in my life. When I have the responsibility for the things that I do, in my life, whenever I get mastery, when I make choices, it's going to have an impact in my life. I recognize that, and that's the impact on health. The result is healthier, less genetic resilience to be molded. I can learn resilience. Those who say overcome adversity as children appear to fare better later in life than those who learn adversity childhood. I think about myself. I feel a child. I was telling people I feel a little bit like a real analyst, right? That makes me a less, maybe a less, what I've done in my oldest adult life, I'm more forward as I've actually thought out difficult, signed up for the marathon, tried to train some kind of man, taken on adversity, and I've faced an adversity in my life that I didn't fight. Because I had allowed the Lord to shape a strong response to adversity in my life, I had learned how to really embrace these fears, joy, and very well. Like faith, I know that those trials God can shape me and mold me. I developed a higher responsibility. Am I where I want to be today? No. I have a growth mindset. I have the greatest responsibility quotient. Not yet. Not yet. I'm growing. I'm going that direction. Resilience programs for children are starting up procrastination and fear states the main play of the goal in young people become successful in their life. What deals with adversity fundamentally and why when you're working with them, yeah, let them work through the hard things. Don't push adversity out of your life. Don't solve those problems for them. Even for you, let them solve them problems later. Adversity is good. Go through it. Face it. Learn how to respond right. I got it. Resilience is God is called challenging your mind. Really work on those mindset work, what talking about this understanding of both mindset, I think control both responding rightly to the circumstances that come my way, even when I'm not certainly there's things in my life that I have not asked for, but I get to decide how I'm going to respond. Full of faith, full of confidence in the Lord is what God has said that He is, and giving up the trust in Him. That's control. Reciprocity theory, loving the control is about the relationship, control over life's events and motivation. Control at. With me, I get to be in charge of my life, and the response I have that's that whole science of it. To think about this. Continuing to develop this concept right? Here we go. Let's talk about the goal of your life. Let's talk about the word helplessness goal. So here's how it comes down. Competitive. Research is negotiate, find adversity. They all for more opportunity, predictably more aggressive, and take more risk. We're more pessimistic react to adversity results in more passivity and caution. We're going to be competitive in life. Take the risk. You got to have a high response to adversity. More optimistic, you're going to take more aggressive, more risk. Now that's good. You want to stay around for the take the risk for your life. You can't take risks. Impact a whole bunch of other areas. Talk about positivity. Religion shows that people do not respond well to adversity. That will not. Or next class, worse, respond well to adversity. If you want to have a high aim, we're making it right here. We're making it now. Competitive. Creativity. Innovation. In essence, is an act of hope. It requires the belief that something that did not previously exist could be possible. But you can't be creative. You don't think there's a possibility of discovering something new. You don't actually think that. But not bringing help. You're just thinking, it's all been done before. Somebody else has discovered it. You name that doctor, that's the motivation. Not acceptable. Those with the highest things to the most motivated people have a high response to adversity. When it comes into your life, you're going to stay motivated. I can look something I can learn. Okay, look, it's good. I want the feedback. I'm onboarding effort. I embrace challenge. Those are the building blocks of what is bringing life growth. I think if I can change, I know I can change. I'm gonna change. Failure is never permanent, never final. I get to do it again. I'm going to engage in the process. I might have gotten laid off. Go find the next job. Maybe go better. I'm learning new skills. I might have gotten fired. I might have had a broken relationship. Maybe I need to do something else. I'm going to keep going. That's when the motivation comes from. You have a high responsive person. You have to know that the options laid out. Respond to adversity. What it's supposed to be, we're going to take more risk. Something you're going to take more risk. We're going to take more risk.
will respond when faced with adversity. Okay? Hang on. Not sure what's going on here. What's happening? I'm going to assume you can still hear me. I'll check this later. I don't know why that message just came up that was switching to some headphones. Okay, so people really can't predict how they're going to respond to adversity. People are not intrinsically good judges of AQ, even for yourself. It's very difficult to predict. So it's got to be measured. It's important to measure your AQ, and that's going to give you the ability to know where you're at in this process or what's going on in your life. Okay, we're going to give you a tool to measure it here in a little bit. Mental health, there's a powerful connection between your AQ, your adversity quotient, and your mental health. We know this to be true. Physical health, look at this. Pessimists who were healthy at 25 suffered worse health between 45 and 60 years of age than optimists when you compare the two. And optimism correlates to high AQ. So those of you who are 25 and are healthy but are a pessimist, your chance of being healthy at 45 through 60 is lower than people who have a high AQ and respond with optimism. That matters. I want you guys to be healthy for a long time. Dr. Nancy Fraser-Smith of the Montreal Heart Institute discovered that among 222 heart patients, those who responded to the adversity of heart trouble with depression and anxiety had double to triple the death rate of those who remained upbeat. Now think about this. The only difference here was their mental approach to the diagnosis of heart disease. And those who responded to that adversity with an optimistic high AQ lived longer and did better than those who didn't. Again, this comes to learned helplessness. If you think you can't change it, you're probably not going to as readily take on the life changes that are going to be necessary that would result in heart health. Your mindset isn't going to be the same. It's going to affect your mental health. It's going to affect your physical health. This is what AQ can do in your life. Okay? Wealth, happiness, and joy. Nothing can sap your vitality, happiness, and joy more readily than walking around with the belief that you have no control over far-reaching, long-lasting adversity. If I think I can't control it, I give up trying to control it. I give up trying. I give up. I quit. I stop climbing. Okay, that was the first building block of adversity, quotient. The second building block is the new science of health. So we're going to get into some more things that impact your health. There is a direct, measurable link between what you think and feel and what goes on in your body. So what's going on in your body, it's directly impacted by what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling. How you respond to life's events can have profound implications on your health and your ability to ascend. The perception of control over your life plays a central role in the vigor of your emotional and physical health. So if you tend toward learned helplessness, you're going to be more depressed, you have more mental health issues, and you're going to be sicker. There's actually a clear link, a direct link between the way I think, do I have a growth mindset, and I'm operating in grit, and my health. This is powerful stuff. Okay? And we just went through some of the stats on that. So we know there's the health, we know there's the cognitive thinking, and finally the science in the brain. So this part I think is fascinating because it's going to help us as we want to develop higher AQ. Okay? Ask the $1 million question. This is Dr. Stoltz was asking this. He said, how long does it take to form a habit? Now, we've all heard the studies before. It takes 21 days to form a habit. It takes 21 weeks to form a habit, whatever it is. So he asked this question, how long does it take to form a habit? Well, the answer that came from the neurologist that was talking to him said, well, how long does it take for you to learn not to touch a hot stove? Right? That habit's learned really fast. Dr. Stoltz said, well, about a second, I guess. And the neurologist said, no, actually, it's 100 milliseconds. Dr. Stoltz was stunned. What are you saying, Dr. Newer? You know, if it takes 100 milliseconds to develop the habit not to touch a hot stove, then why do we say it takes 21 days to develop other habits? What are we talking about? Because we want to change the wiring of our minds. How do we develop new habits? So Dr. Stoltz asks, what are you saying, Dr. Newer? And here's what Dr. Newer said. When you touch a hot stove, an alarm goes off in your brain, immediately making you keenly aware of where you have placed your hand. That loud alarm is instrumental in interrupting the subconscious thought pattern in the basal ganglia, which is a subconscious automatic region of the brain, and bringing that that alarm, it brings it up into the conscious region of the brain. So the alarm goes off, it interrupts the subconscious, it drops right down into that part of your brain called the basal ganglia, the subconscious automatic region of the brain, and it brings it up to the conscious region of the brain. Okay? The anatomy of habit, Dr. Ruhr explained to me, is that learning takes place in the outer conscious region or gray matter of the brain. This region is called the cerebral cortex. That's where learning takes place. Initial learning is a blood and oxygen-rich activity. So the learning is taking place in the outer region of the brain, but that alarm was triggered in the subconscious region of the brain. Okay? So over time, as you repeat a new thought, pattern, or behavior, that activity migrates to the subconscious automatic region of the brain called the basal ganglia. So if I'm trying to learn on the outer region of the brain, it takes time to get down into that subconscious response, which then becomes a habit. But if an alarm goes off, it starts in the subconscious and works its way out to the gray matter of the brain. Okay? So think about it this way. What would happen if I sent you on a hike that had no blazed trail, just off into the woods? How would that affect the speed and the efficiency of your hike? Obviously, it would slow it down substantially. If you're off into the woods with no blazed path and no pattern and no direction to go down, it would slow it down. The same thing, the same thing occurs in the brain. When you first start out, the neurological trail is undeveloped. So when I'm trying to develop new thinking in my mind, that pattern or that trail hasn't been blazed. I haven't gone down that trail very often. The resulting connections are relatively inefficient. But the more you do or think something, the more efficient those connections become. So as I do it over time, over and over and over and over, I'm starting to develop those patterns in my mind. Those trails are getting blazed more and more, and those connections are becoming more efficient in my mind. So as you do or think something repeatedly, your brain adapts by creating denser and more efficient neural pathways in your brain, and thus it becomes a habit. The alarm of the hot stove burned a real strong path right away. But other habits are going to take more time for you to develop, or at least pathways in your brain are going to take longer for you to develop because of this neurology. So Dr. Stoltz is saying, based on the research of leading neurologists, we learn that the brain is ideally equipped to form habits. This is great news for us. It means we're going to be able to develop a stronger response to adversity. We can grow and grit. We can have a growth mindset. The brain's ideally equipped to form habits. Habits become hardwired in the subconscious region of the brain as we do them over and over and over. Pretty soon they're subconscious. I can tell you, for example, for me, I have not set an alarm to get up and exercise in the morning. I've actually set it, but I haven't woken up to that alarm for a very long time. My brain now habitually is waking up around 5 a.m. It's time to go exercise. It's time to go exercise. And how did that happen? Because when I was training for the Ironman, I kept setting the alarm, I wake up to the alarm, I wake up. Pretty soon my brain hardwired it. Now is when it's time to wake up and go exercise. It becomes hardwired. On the days I don't get to exercise, I feel physically a letdown because I don't get to exercise. My brain has become so dependent on the exercise and enjoying the endorphin rush and the feelings that I get from exercise that it wants that. Subconscious habits such as AQ can be immediately altered, readily forming new habits that are strengthened over time. And we're going to talk about how to readily alter those quickly so that you can develop them over time, will result in a higher AQ. Okay? That's great when you want to learn a new skill. That's really good news. We can develop those patterns and develop a new skill. It's really bad news, though, the more you repeat a destructive action or habit. So the more you are repeating a low AQ response to adversity, the more you're reinforcing that highway that may already be a super highway developed into your brain and mind. And we're going to have to undo the super highway and build a new highway. So the deeper, faster, and more automatic it becomes, the more you do it. So if you've got a low response to adversity and you've been doing that for 25, 30, 40, 50 years, you have to undo that highway and build a new one. It can be done, though. We can overcome and we can grow. That's really good news. The more you repeat a constructive thought or action, the deeper, faster, and more automatic it becomes. So let's get to the right thinking and do away with the wrong thinking. Let's develop the growth mindset and do away with the fixed mindset. Let's embrace grit and do away with quitting. Let's continue to become climbers and onboard the challenging thinking that's going to make for a better response to adversity. To unlearn a bad or destructive habit, such as a low AQ, you must start at the conscious region of your brain and initiate new neural pathways. We have to identify where our adversity quotient responses have been low and change the way we're thinking. And that's what we're going to do together. We're going to change the way we think. So these are the building blocks that form AQ. These findings also reveal what you might do in order to immediately reroute your AQ and begin to hardwire your brain for success. We're going to learn how to do that in coming classes as we move forward. So that's where I want to stop this particular lecture. We are going to pick it up in the next lecture together.